Hello, how's it going? Welcome to the newest episode of Borderline Podcast Disorder. Well, this episode has a friend of mine as a guest, a fellow BPD person, a fellow DPD graduate. We met through the dialectual behavioral therapy um, classes, me and Kristine, and we stayed in touch. And she's a brilliant, she's a lovely person, and she's a very smart person, and she's very creative. She's a writer. She's a poet as well. Make sure you check out her socials and stay up to date with her work. And you'll see we talk about a book that she's working on, which is very interesting. It's about dating. It's about how um, dating, I guess, not works, but how it's perceived now. She she's done a lot of research into this, and it was really interesting chatting with her about it. And we could have continued for hours. Yeah, I think there was so much more to talk about, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. And yeah, I'll leave you to it. That's all from me. Enjoy. Hello, hello, hello.
Hi.
Perfect. So, Kristine, welcome to welcome to. I don't even know what to say today's episode. Anyway, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm pretty good today, honestly. Even though the weather is horrible, it's so bad today. But yesterday was a really nice day. I went for a lovely walk on Richmond Park, and have you not
South London?
Yeah, South London. Have you seen Ted Lasso?
Yeah, but I didn't. I've only seen the first season, which I loved, and the second season was just not good, and I stopped watching.
Okay. Well,
But that's why I was confused because Richmond is in Ted Lasso, right?
Right. That's where Ted Lasso is set. And Richmond Park is one of the biggest parks. I think it might be the biggest park in London. And they have a lot of deer that run around there. It's just really, really nice. And right next to Richmond Park, which I didn't know before, is something called the Wimbledon and Putney Common, Wimbledon and Wandsworth Common. I'm completely butchering this. But there's a common right next to it, which is actually like a forest. So it's really dense with trees, and you can go walking through there as well.
What's a common?
It's just one more way the British people describe parks, I think.
Okay, cool. Right.
And it's common because it's not private land, so everyone can go there. So I think that's
Okay.
where that comes from. But anyway, had a really lovely day yesterday, just walking around and seeing some areas of London with actual nature, which I highly recommend. And then today started the day off right by going to boxing class, and then came here. That's pretty much it.
Nice. Well, that sounds. You know what? Sounds good. I am glad we discussed. I think I'm glad I've got to express my opinion about Ted Lasso. Yeah, because I loved the first season. It was very good, and then the second one was.
So does that mean you never saw the third or fourth season?
No.
Wow.
I think I tried. No, I'm lying. I watched the first few episodes of the third season.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm just not on board with this anymore.
Oh.
Because I don't know why. To me, actually, I think it's before we. Because just for context, we met during the DBT course, right?
Yes.
So
that is correct.
I've watched. I think the first season might have come out just when we were maybe in DBT. Or anyway, because I remember I watched it probably before DBT. Or again, it's not just to say as if that's the reason why I. But anyway, at the time, to me, things were, and even now in some situations, they were a bit ultimate. And I was like, I don't understand what this is. Is this a sitcom? Is this a, rom-com? I don't know what it is. I don't understand it. I don't know where everything is going. It's too much happening.
Oh. Oh, okay.
for my liking. I was like, yeah, I'm done.
Well, I mean, I will say I heard some critiques about how once in the series the characters are too much apart. Like when they have, instead of being together and having kind of combined storylines, when it became very much that they're all off in their own tangents doing their things, that it became hard for some people there. I know I've heard critiques like that, but for me personally, I think just mainly that I always saw it as comfort food in the form of a TV show, and just something that makes you feel like there are good people out there, when at other times a lot of other shows are just quite dark and heavy. So I like that it gave a little bit of a balance.
Yeah, okay. I don't mind the dark. I mean, to be honest, like my favorite TV show, I think of all time, is Criminal Minds. So
Criminal Minds.
yeah. So I'm
okay. Well, I must admit I've never seen an episode.
No way.
No.
Not even. Wow. Okay.
I'm not really big on procedurals.
Procedurals.
It's what they call those shows where there's kind of like a villain in an episode, or like a criminal in an episode that they investigate. So like CSI, NCIS, Law and Order, Castle.
Castle
NYPD
was bad.
Blue. I'm aging myself so much now by like going back to like 90s cop shows, but
no, they are back now. You know, they are all on Netflix.
All of those are procedurals.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I know I've watched, and this is out of context and out of like anything we were going to talk about anyway, but I think I watched the NY Blue or something like that.
NYPD Blue.
Yeah, NYPD Blue, and it was incredible because they have like the cops are like so.
I mean,
90s or
that show is and it's funny. It's a hallmark in TV because it was such a turning point in terms of how rough and rugged you could show some things, and like, you know, how not all of these cops are, because obviously caveat, I do believe in propaganda, but on the show there's a little bit more room for bad cops and actually portraying them as bad cops, and not just as you got to do bad things as a good cop to get the confession or whatever. Yeah. There's more.
It was crazy
because
I remember I watched it like I forgot his name. He was just like it was
Jimmy Smits.
I think so. He was always drunk, and
no,
he's the other guy. He's the one like the bald one, like the balding one with the mustache.
Oh yeah,
and he had arrested like this like black person, and he was just like using the N-word like over and over and over and over again.
Throwback.
And I was like, whoa, what is happening here? You know, and I was like, oh well, again, it's I guess a portrayal anyway. But
I mean, that is also a fascinating topic, honestly. Although I get it's not really what we're supposed to be talking about. But then I've thought about that a lot in terms of Quentin Tarantino movies and how much of a fan. And I mean, I'm not the first person to say this, nor the first person to have thought of this, and definitely also not the last person to think of this. But why, and to what extent is Quentin Tarantino so obsessed with the N-word, and why does it have to be in so many of his movies, and is part of his thing just wanting to, because he writes the scripts, you know?
Yeah.
So I've always found that quite fascinating, and what does that actually say? And is that something that you should incorporate into your valuation of his movies otherwise, or is that kind of a separate thing?
That sounds really, I think I remember at some point someone mentioned to me something like whether he chooses to like base his movies on certain periods of time so that he can slide it in. Like there wouldn't be a movie about like 2023 or like early 2000s or like where it would be like Quentin Tarantino based story. Everything has to be probably like 80s or 90s or 70s.
Or 1800s.
Yeah, where things were where he can use that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And I think apparently he's a nice person.
I know.
Allegedly.
I've never about him.
One of my someone who I know have met him.
Met him personally?
Yeah, apparently they were in New York. In New York, I think. And they were at a pizza place.
Wow.
And Quentin Tarantino was there. And my mate was like, oh my God, I'm like such a huge fan. Like, do you mind taking a picture? And he was like, look, I don't do pictures. but apparently he paid for the pizza.
Oh.
Yeah, because he was like, look, I don't know the pictures, but here's like,
Okay.
don't worry. Yeah, he was like, don't worry, boys, it's on me, kind of thing. And,
All right. Well,
yeah.
I mean, I will say, and I forgot his name. I think it's, but the guy who plays the dad in the OC.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He held up the door for me at Balthazar in New York once.
Shut up.
So he was really lovely. He was really nice.
You know that actually he was my. Oh, I need to search his name in the show because actually that was my. And actually I think this is going to go really well on like what we were talking about. Sandy Cohen.
Yes.
Sandy. I had my Tinder bio was that I am this I'm looking. No, basically, I think it was something like trying to be, or like trying to normalize Sandy Cohen. You know, or some.
That's adorable.
Yeah, so that was my old Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, whatever, any dating app that I was using.
Okay. Well, I mean, once we get to that topic, I would be curious to hear exactly how many apps you were actually on.
Yeah, but yeah, I used that for a while.
Okay, that's cute.
I absolutely loved Sandy Cohen.
I mean, the OC, stellar show.
Yeah, until
awesome
last season.
soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but they've said themselves that like, yeah, once we killed Marissa, was the show really that good? Meh. But yeah, I know also somebody talked about like there's an episode where the main character, what's his name?
Ben McKenzie?
Ben, yeah, how he learned soccer for an episode and then it's never talked about again, and how like I miss that kind of TV where like sometimes there's just this random throwaway episode. Because it's not just a condensed 12 episode season where everything has to be super prestige and you have to follow it with full attention and yeah.
Oh no, OC was one of my favorite shows, and I think I watched again at the end of the pandemic, and a couple of times since, to be honest.
Oh wow, you recently rewatched it?
Yeah, I think up to maybe maybe only the first 2 or 3 seasons.
Because honestly, I haven't rewatched it since since it aired, basically. Yeah.
I think when there were rumors that Seth might become the new James Bond. There were there were some rumors. I think.
Why would he? No, they would never.
Well, apparently they were, and I think that's when I started rewatching OC.
I mean, them hiring an American to play James Bond is even more outlandish. I don't think that seems really far away.
Again, I just remember seeing
Parallel
it somewhere.
Universe stuff.
I remember seeing it somewhere, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I miss him." And I started,
I
watching
mean, he
OC.
would bring more of a kind of like quippy Iron Man sensibility.
Oh yeah,
actually. I feel like to James Bond than kind of that like
the
gravitas, dry.
The inventor of Chrismukkah.
The inventor of Chrismukkah. Yeah.
Oh, I miss. Oh, even now when I talk about it, I remember OC.
Nostalgia's
the nostalgia's back, and when he's trying he's sailing away to, which I think was one of the funniest, ways of like, oh yeah, where are you going? I think where you go, Portland. He sailed away from Orange County to Portland. Because he went to stay with like Marissa's ex-boyfriend.
I don't remember. See,
really? Okay.
I haven't seen it since it aired. And I mean, when did it finish airing? I mean, this is like what? We're talking pre-2010.
Yeah, no, before.
I think it finished. Before. When did it finish? Like 2008 or something? And I haven't seen it since. And we are in 2024.
I think, because the first time I've watched it was, I think it was in Romania. Mm-hmm. I was in high school, so it was like maybe 2012, 2013.
I mean, that must have been a rerun already then at that point.
Oh no, I watched it like online. Like I didn't. It wasn't on TV. Like, I remember watching some. Oh yeah, I was trying to like be emo. And I got, so I think the way I got into OC is through the Def Cup for Cutie.
Okay, yeah.
so I watched, like, basically because I was listening to Def Cab for Cutie, and then I think I've seen something on the internet where like Seth was a huge Def Cab for Cutie
Yeah.
fan, and then they were mentioned a lot in OC.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, OC sounds interesting, let's have a look.
I mean,
And I think Gotham might have come out, and I was like, oh, Ben McKenzie, was
the show where he plays like
the police officer,
who
yeah.
works with Batman.
Yeah. So I was
Yeah.
like, he's Gary Oldman.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's anyway. That would be the
Yeah,
transition. But so I remember I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. So yeah, I've actually watched it after, like, again after it's finished. So that's why,
Wow.
to me, the last season I didn't know what's happening, and I was like, this is shocking. And I remember for a long time I actually hated OC because I was like, this is the worst ending. Not worse, but like I think because I was emotionally attached.
See, I'm
to
trying
the
to
show.
like cast my mind back, and all I can really remember is because they brought in this other girl, right? This blonde girl to kind of so that they still had two guys, two girls, kind of as main leads.
Yeah.
And she was kind of dating Ben on and off, right throughout. And then I remember that, like, isn't in the finale Seth marries?
Yeah, but
Summer?
that's the thing, because I think
I almost said Blair, because that's his real wife.
so.
But
Seth,
Blair is her character name from Gossip Girl. But yeah,
but it was really weird because basically they've all like they finished it, like they went from Sandy's wife getting out of like treatment to having having a baby, and I think they moved to Seattle, and it was all like within an episode.
oh wow, okay.
And that's why I was
Yeah.
just like, this.
Oh, but the classic time jump. I mean,
I don't know, not for me. And I then I did some research because I remember I went on like the internet, and that was like before Reddit, so I went like on Wikipedia, and I found out that apparently they just like cut the budget, and they were like, okay, that's it, we're wrapping it up. And that's why the finale is so like, let's just throw everything in there.
Yeah.
Well, I think, I don't know. Look, I'm saying, if it was me, I would have probably leave it much more like wide open to people's imagination.
I mean, that's more of like the Sopranos style ending, right? Where you just cut to black.
I've not finished.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
But that's fine. No, I
Apologies.
no, that's okay, because I feel like it's.
I mean, I haven't spoiled that much.
And also, I feel
You don't
like
know what's going on before the cut to black.
when it's over a 15-year-old show, you probably
I mean, that's also quite an interesting topic.
you should expect that.
When is the expiration date on? Ooh, no spoilers. Like, because there has to be a cutoff. Yeah.
I remember, I think it was someone, we were talking about Avatar, the second one, because I started watching
I
it.
hate Avatar.
Oh, I love the first one.
I
and
hate
the video
it.
game was
And
very
I can
good.
I will shout it from the rooftops. I hate it so much. Avatar is Pocahontas with bad 3D. Like,
What? Pocahontas is in.
Pocahontas, Pocahontas.
Yeah, but why?
Why? Because it's a white dude coming to like
Oh, yeah.
to like integrate with the locals, but it's really mainly because they're exploiting their resources, and
then he falls in love.
and then
with-
they fall in love,
okay.
and it's no,
That's an interesting. I never thought about it that way.
really.
But I've never paid enough. Like, I didn't care enough.
Well, I mean, that's
for
not
it.
the only fault it has, because also one of my favorite SNL sketches. Have you seen the Papyrus sketch
No, I don't think so.
with Ryan? Yeah, with Ryan Gosling.
No.
It's amazing. SNL, they will do a sketch every show that they've pre-taped that is like kind of a lot of the times it'll be like a music video, or it'll be like a little bit more cinematic. And there's one with Ryan Gosling where it's the cinematic thing about this guy who's basically going insane because Avatar used the papyrus font. Here you have this $1 billion grossing movie, and their font is just papyrus. I mean, if y'all haven't seen the skit, it's on YouTube. Like, you should see it. It's great. It's really good.
I'll check it out, because I watched SNL wise, I didn't. I don't have any idea of like the old SNL because I've kind of like
What do you mean by old SNL? What are we?
like 80s, 90s,
Okay.
early 2000s because
Yeah.
it wasn't a thing in Romania,
Right.
So I think the only way I got into SNL is because of after I've started watching stand up and I knew that John Mulaney was in SNL, so I'd start watching.
John
So
Mulaney, yeah.
it's quite and then I think I had the kind of, and I still I like Pete Davidson and I really liked his like comedy style and stuff. So he was another reason to watch SNL. But yeah, that's the thing. Like I'm a very new generation, and also I think I watched a lot of Chris Farley. Like whatever you can see on YouTube. But again, that's only because I just found him very like hilarious. I think through Adam Sandler, because I had a period when I was like really into Adam Sandler, and I was like, oh my god, who's this other guy who's like so like such an idiot? And it was Chris Farley, and then I started watching videos of Chris Farley, and I was like, oh my god, this guy is so good, and he reminds me of a Romanian. I guess like a comedy, actor, and just because of like the goofiness and stuff, and I was like, oh, this is beautiful, and then I've kind of like read stuff about Chris Farley, and I was like, oh, my heart breaks for him.
Yeah, it's a tragic story.
Yeah. But he was very good, and that's but you see, that's the thing. Like to me, SNL is not. I don't know. Like I think there are people who have so much more respect, or like because it's like, oh, I grew up watching it, or like I grew up with this. Not to me. And also, what's her name? The one that did the 30 Rock.
Tina Fey.
Tina Fey. She's good.
I mean, Tina Fey and Amy Poehler were my in. That's how I got into SNL. Yeah.
But Tina Fey, like I'm not big because that's I'm a fan of Tina Fey.
I mean the comedy sensibilities of 30 Rock, that's my jam.
Really?
Oh yeah. This kind of like otherworldly absurdist, like just ridiculousness. I love it. I absolutely love it.
I am the one I love. I'm Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Okay.
Yeah. I just love Larry David.
Yeah.
And I think I like 30 Rock. I think I watched maybe the first season, or like I binged it, so I don't remember a lot. But I do again. I think she's brilliant.
See, I've seen all seasons. There's 7 of them. I love 30 Rock. Veep is another one that I really love. I mean that's like black, bleak political satire.
Which one?
Veep.
No idea.
So Veep is Julia Louis-Dreyfus, which actually she also started on SNL.
Really?
And this is like, this is a show that she did in the 2010s. I think there were 5 seasons, if I'm not wrong. And she plays the vice president of the U.S. And it was pre-Trump, because basically the showrunner said once Trump got into office, I can't do like when reality is comedy. you can't do comedy anymore like this.
Oh my
God. So he stopped. But that show, recommend, highly recommend. It's really, really good. It's an HBO show, so I'm not entirely sure where you can stream it in the UK, but it's really good.
I might be wrong, but I think HBO is coming to UK.
Are they?
I think so. I might again. This is
well. This would be quite interesting, because right now they have kind of like it's a HBO content in the UK is extremely split across multiple platforms, because they have kind of an agreement with Sky. So there's some stuff on Now. There's some stuff on BBC. There's some stuff on Paramount Plus. Like, it's all over the place.
But you see, this is why I think, because I've seen Sopranos, Curb Your Enthusiasm, The Wire. That's
also HBO.
Are leaving Sky.
Okay.
In May.
Interesting. So that's your theory. Why?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they either move. They
do rotate their content every now and then, and the deals are always kind of like for a certain period of time. Just like when Friends left Netflix, it was like a huge thing.
But they never left.
No. So Friends left Netflix in the US, if I'm not wrong.
Oh yeah, in the US,
back.
but in the UK they said that they are leaving soon and they never left. And then I can't remember what else is on, like, because you were saying the plot the like Paramount and BBC, but I think. Again, I think no, but yeah. Anyway, that's my theory because it's just random that because okay, like I understand one of the shows because first I thought it might be because Curb Your Enthusiasm, like this is the last season.
It's
now.
ending, yeah.
But then Sopranos is like leaving, and then I was like, what is happening? You know,
right? Well, are the other HBO shows leaving? So like White Lotus, is that leaving?
I haven't checked the other ones. I only checked the three.
Have you seen White Lotus? Which, I mean, not a comedy.
No.
But fascinating show as well.
No, I haven't actually because I feel I got too much. I've got too much stuff to do.
You've got too much stuff to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a TV junkie. I will admit that readily. I watch a lot of TV. It's probably the main type of media content that I consume.
I unfortunately watch almost the same things over and over again. Like
I wonder if this is. I feel like this is a generational thing.
Really?
Yeah, that there's this kind of it's comfort, it's soothing, it's familiar. It allows for you to do multitasking because you already kind of know what's going on.
That's what I was going to say. That basically, like, if I have if something has my undivided attention, it will be new stuff,
right?
But if I'm like, for example, like in the evening now, right?
Yeah.
Say I'm home alone, I'll probably have like either Seinfeld or like The Big Bang Theory or even if it's and also usually it's comedy. But I think it's also because
like sitcoms.
Yeah, but I think it's also because this time of the year I feel very like emotional.
Well, I mean, we are still in the bleak times.
Oh, I think to me, so like March and I think February, March, because in March it was meant to be like my parents' both birthdays.
Oh, okay.
So I feel like like this month is just and like in the build up for this, I always feel a bit like nah,
Yeah.
So that's why I do, because also I've noticed that I do need, because if you remember when we were in DBT together, we were talking about like instead of multitasking, just doing one thing at a time.
Yeah.
So I've actually ended up like reading without having anything in the background, or like sometimes I go for runs and I wouldn't listen to music. I just like to enjoy because I try to do like one thing at a time.
And how's that been?
It's been good, like I've noticed. Look, I watch football, for example. I mean, besides of the because we watch together, but
had to see how Liverpool were doing.
I watch like football, or like I watch the some like Six Nations games, and I can just watch it in peace. Like I wouldn't even touch my phone. But now I've noticed that I actually do seek, like at times, if I'm, for example, when I edit the podcast, I will do it in absolute silence.
Right.
But then if I'm just like scrolling, or if I have nothing to do, I need background noise.
Okay.
So I feel like I'm valuing both a bit more.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's going well. Like doing one thing at a time is going well. But I also I found that more recently I get more, and I also like I go back to sleep now with background like white noise, because I can't sleep without. And apparently I read something that it's fear of like being alone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting theory. I'm not entirely sure I buy it, but okay.
Yeah, well, apparently because it's just like you don't want to be on your own. And I was like, it's kind of true, because I do have. I think this time I do feel like I need constant. I actually wrote like a whole like stand up bit about how, how I don't only seek. I don't seek. What's the word? God, I should know better because I wrote it. I don't seek basically like attention, or like I don't seek gratitude from my partner from doing things, as in like, oh, I took the bins out, and like, please
safe.
What,
like,
as in like your love languages?
no, I think
Are we
it's
talking
more
about
as in
that?
like I want people to know that I'm doing stuff, and I'm kind of like I'm craving attention a bit more, and also
Okay.
I have this basically the whole idea is that I seek attention and I seek to be rewarded for trying. So like I
Okay.
would basically like because I've a couple of weeks ago I've messaged my partner saying, oh, I really want to take the bins out today. Even though I didn't, I
What
didn't
if
take.
message just said, "Well, then go ahead, darling."
No, but
I
because
mean-
it got like late, you know, it was like dark outside, and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna do it anymore. But I still needed.
Oh,
Someone
that's
to
so sweet that you wanted to, but then didn't.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the whole.
Okay.
That's the idea of like I
Yeah.
really I'm
I'm
like
sorry, but how does this relate to not wanting to be alone?
just because again it's just like the need of attention, I guess. You know, I
Okay.
just need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, be like, oh, I really want to do
Feel
something,
seen.
but I chose
Yeah.
to sit on a sofa for 7 hours.
Okay. Okay. I mean, sometimes that's needed as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
Now, do you want to talk about? Shall we talk about the book?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what's the name of the book yet?
So, workshop title is "Relationships Are a High Risk Sport."
Okay.
I will say workshop title because I'm still like thinking about it. It was originally dating men is a high risk sport, but then I've kind of expanded a little bit on the concept in that I want to talk about relationships in the larger context and not just in the context of dating, and also not just in the context of romantic relationships. But yeah, workshopping very much. You know, editing and like thinking about things like this, it takes a while. But that's
How did
workshop
you?
title.
How did you? What made you want to do it? What made you want to write about it?
I think so. Deep breath, but I've always really liked writing as an outlet and as a way to structure my thoughts, as a way to make sense of the world. I've written poetry since I was like 10, 11, as a way to handle really big things when they happen or when I feel a particularly extreme, not necessarily extreme emotion, but strong emotion. When emotions are really strong, it's kind of my way of getting that out. I think in a similar way of like a songwriter
Ah, okay.
or a musician is like, oh, that's how I like handle things or kind of process what has been going on, is like I'll write a song about it. And for me, it's like, oh, I'll write a poem about it.
What?
And yeah, and then I've been thinking for a while about books and ideas for books, and I've written a couple short stories as well. And then this idea for the book, honestly, it just came because I was dating and it was horrifying and exhausting and heartbreaking and heart-wrenching, and I talk about it a lot with my friends, and then quite a few of them were like, oh, but like this is really interesting, and these are some of your perspectives, like these aren't necessarily things that I've heard before, or oh, I haven't really thought about it in that way. So then I started thinking, well, actually, maybe this could be useful, and this could be something quite interesting to write down. Obviously, there are quite a few dating books out there, so we'll see how this one fares. But that's kind of how it came about. Yeah.
That's interesting because I kind of from personal experience, I don't know. I feel like dating was something that I had to. I feel like I had to do it,
Yeah.
but also I hated it. And
Yeah.
I
Isn't that interesting? The sense of obligation, right? That like, oh, but you have to do it. And I think it's also quite interesting in the sense that how does that relate to apps, and how does that relate to the sense of, oh, because it's so readily available, you like, oh, this is the minimum threshold of how you should be putting yourself out there, rather than the minimum threshold being I'm open to love and I'm out in the world and
Yeah.
I will meet people with, an open mind. Instead, it's become this thing of like, oh, but you're on the apps. I think that's quite fascinating as well, actually.
I'm gonna. So basically, something happened to me a while back, and it put me off. Like, basically, I got scared of I was scared of romantic stuff.
Okay, this is very vague.
Yeah,
You're gonna have to get a little bit more specific.
Okay, without because I'm not like ready to share. Anyway, something happened when I was like I think 19, and I basically
so really a while back.
Well, not that I'm not that old, no. Not that far back, but far enough. Yeah,
several years.
Yeah. So no, wait, 18. I was 18.
Yeah,
and then up until like 21, I don't think I've dated anyone, or I haven't done anything, just because I was just so scared of but basically I was scared to like sleep with someone, because I was like, I'm not gonna do that. And it put me off dating, right? And then at 21 I was like, 2021 I was like, oh god, okay, I need to start no, I need to, I don't know, anyway, I started dating someone, and
you felt a sudden sense of urgency, or
no, I think it just happened.
Okay,
but I was just gonna say that now the reason why this is the reason why I thought I'd mention this is because I remember like sometimes I'd like meet I'd speak with people online, and I've been called out quite a few times for apparently showing like I lack interest, but it's just because to me I was like I don't want to show someone who I am not to people. So the fact that I would be like I wouldn't message constantly, or the fact that I wouldn't be like, oh yeah.
Are we talking about attachment styles here? Is that where we're going?
I don't know what we're talking about. I'm just telling. I was just saying. So anyway, my point was I've been called for some reason. I've been told that I seem like I don't put enough attention, but also I do remember sometimes going on dates and thinking, why did I do this? I remember once I had like one of the worst dates of
yes,
online.
Please share your worst date story.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You share yours then?
Okay, sure.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So God, let me think which one. But okay, I'll share this particular one. So I started chatting with someone on, I think it might have been Tinder, and I was waiting for them near a place where I used to work, in a restaurant I used to work, and she comes like out of a taxi, and I was I didn't recognize her.
Okay.
And then
are we talking like catfish situation almost?
So
like heavily filtered, or like
it was
pictures from over a decade ago?
Maybe, I think it was a combination.
Or is it even like these pictures aren't even you?
No. I think the pictures were her, but probably she was like younger but I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, she looked very different, because she was like, I think her makeup was, which I'm very peculiar, but like I like makeup, but I also feel like I rate like good makeup. And anyway, she just anyway.
Well, that's also fascinating, because then obviously my next follow-up question would be, what is good makeup?
It makes me sound horrible. I think in my head is like when it feels like, to me, basically, I think one of the things I get is like when there is a color difference between like
the face
neck,
and the neck,
and stuff like that.
Lack of blending.
Yeah, I think again, I hope this doesn't make me sound horrible, because that's not. Anyway, so let's get back to the story. So
lots of trigger warnings on this episode.
She gets. Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, we'll put it out there. We'll put the trigger anyway. But yeah, so she gets out of the taxi, and I see her, and she goes like, hi, and I was like, hello? And she's like, oh, hi, it's me, and I was like, oh, yeah. And anyway, we go to a restaurant around the corner, and we start eating. Like, we ordered, because it was a tapas place, right? So we ordered some food, and then I think we started chatting, and then 30 minutes in, she just starts just like complaining about almost everything.
Okay.
And
About like the food.
no, just like life
Okay.
and work, and she wasn't happy with because I think she was like studying, but she was also working for like a fancy company, and she wasn't enjoying it. And
Yeah.
and then she was talking about, I think she was telling me about like some of her like very like wild nights out and stuff like that, and I was like, okay, fine. And then we start eating, and we kind of like eat and we chit chat, and then the waiter was actually someone who I knew because I used to visit that restaurant quite a bit.
Okay. Was your date spot?
No, well, at the time he wasn't, but I actually,
Okay.
basically, because I used to work in hospitality, so
Yeah.
it used to be on something called the Code app. So you used to get like major discounts if you worked in hospitality.
Okay.
So that's why I used to go there, because it was like you'd pay like 40% off or
Yeah.
something like that some days. And
Right.
that's how I met, the way. And also because that restaurant was where I used to work, sometimes for like after work drinks, we used to go in the same pubs.
Okay.
So that's
Right.
how me and whose name I forgot now. Anyway, and then he goes, "Oh, I'll get you some shots on the house," and I was like, "No, thanks." And then she's like, "Yeah, no, sorry." He brings the shots, and he was like, "Oh, these are on the house."
Oh, okay.
And then I was like, "I'm all right, thanks." And then she just like takes both of them,
Okay.
and she goes like, "Oh, so do you wanna go to like this place, and then do you wanna come to mine?"
She
and-
asked you to come to her.
Yeah, and
After 30 minutes.
no, again, like that's after a couple hours.
Okay.
But throughout those hours in my head, I was like, I can't do this. I'm really.
I think it sounds like you have a similar issue to me of like, you don't know how to leave. Which I've had this happen a couple times where I just like, I wished I was better at leaving, but I'm really bad at having an exit strategy and how to cut something. So I'll just end up sitting there being miserable for hours. Because I'm like, oh no, I don't know how to go. I don't know what to say. Oh, I really want to leave, but I don't know how to. Yeah.
So you see, that's the thing. So we spent a few hours there, and after she was like, "Oh yeah, do you want to go to like this place for like after drinks and then come to mine?" And I was like, "Actually, I can't. I got stuff to do tomorrow," and I think she left. Or like we basically walked out, left. No, as in like walked out of the place, parted ways, and I went to a co-op, and I bought a pack of 4 muffins.
Okay.
And basically, I went home, and it was like 9:30 or 10, and I was just playing. And my flatmate basically one of my closest friends walked out on me eating muffins and like playing on I think I was playing on my Mac at the time. I was playing on my Mac. It was like, "I thought you had the date tonight." And I was like, "Yeah, don't ask." And I was basically, I remember just having those like 4 muffins next to my Mac and just like nibbling on them while playing. And I think that's how I spent like almost the whole night.
Okay.
Yeah. And
that's your worst date.
No, well, that was like one. I think because I felt really bad because in one hand I was like, "What's wrong with me? Why do I not like want to stay out?" Because I think the way
you felt bad for not going to hers once she invited you.
I also felt bad for like I was like, "Is something wrong with me? Like, what am I expecting? What's happening? Why am I not sociable? Why, because it was quite weird for me to just go like, this is gonna be a terrible evening, and it did again. It kind of, and again, all I remember was just her like, "Oh, I don't like my job. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this," and I was like, "Oh God." Okay.
Proper downer.
Yeah, and I was like, fine, I understand. And I think I would like try to say something and she would take over, which is sometimes, I mean, I think, at times I don't mind.
Yeah.
But at that time, I just remember trying to be like, "Oh, yeah." And I was like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
So, but I think that was, and the other one was, I want to say a blind date, but it's a similar thing where we went out to a festival, like a day festival thing. It was like a, I want to say, I think it was like something like Caribbean sort of festival.
Okay,
And,
I mean that's quite a fun date idea. Lots to talk about.
But the thing is, she like we started drinking at the festival, and then she saw her ex-boyfriend there, and then
Okay.
she just started talking about her ex-boyfriend for like
Oh.
the rest of the time, and then she's like,
See,
"Oh,
now this sounds more like my worst one.
oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
go on." So I'll finish this after you tell me. yours.
Well, well, because so my worst one, basically we had tried to meet up previously, and it had gotten to the point where I kind of thought he maybe was a catfish because he didn't have a profile picture on WhatsApp. He didn't have an Instagram, and we had scheduled a time to meet. And I was actually already at the bus stop, like on my way to meet him, when he was like, "Oh no, actually, like never mind, emergency with my flatmate." And then he didn't give any detail, and I
Yeah.
just thought like, okay, this is really shady. So I was like, I don't know. But then he was like, the week after, I think he texted me and then was like, "Oh, but actually, like I have time on Sunday. What about that?" I think it was a Sunday. Not entirely sure anymore. And so I showed up and he was real, which I was quite surprised. And we walked to a bar. And actually it was like a cafe bar thing. So at first we were at the coffee place, and basically from the time we sat down, he started talking about his past relationship history, which it turns out that he had been together with this girl for 11 years, and they had been living together and moved together to London. And then during the pandemic, the way he described it is that basically he was going to this gym on a regular basis, and there was this girl at the gym who said to him that she thought he was really attractive and that she wanted to sleep with him, but he was engaged, because at this point they weren't just they hadn't just moved to London together, and they weren't just living together, they were also engaged. And this girl was like, "I want to sleep with you." But he was like, "Oh, but I'm engaged." And the girl said, "No, that's fine." So he was like, "Okay." Which obviously massive red flag. So the way he then tells the story is that, so they then had an affair. He had sex with her a couple times. But she knew that he was engaged and blah, 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 blah. But then apparently this girl wanted more. It's always interesting how it gets turned into this like, but we have these rules, and then the woman thinks that she can have more. It's always portrayed in this light rather than, aren't you the bad guy anyway for having this affair? Anyway, she wanted more. He said no. And for some reason, I'm not entirely sure how, this girl at the gym knew where he lived. And so she proceeds to write a letter detailing the affair and everything that happened, and delivers this letter, and the fiance reads it, as happens.
Yeah.
At which point, obviously, not a great time in this relationship. Apparently, they tried to repair it. They went to counseling, but she didn't trust him anymore, which, I mean, good for her.
Fair enough.
And so they broke it off. And basically, he was telling me this whole story. And then he also said that, yeah, and like his family just really loved her. So actually, his dad isn't speaking to him. Another red flag. And he's not so sure how he feels about the whole thing either, like about himself and about this relationship and how things went down. Another red flag. And yeah, so he's kind of on the dating apps, but he doesn't know. So he doesn't think he wants anything serious. He's not ready for anything serious. So really only looking for something casual, which is not what I was looking for. But I was like, okay, still just kind of taking in all of the information that I've been getting. And then he proceeds to talk about this other girl that he kind of met on the apps and had seen like 5-6 times, but that he thought that she was playing him. So basically, on this date, he used me first as a therapist, then as a sounding board.
I'm so sorry to
then like as advice for how to proceed with this casual fling that he was having. And this is where like I was raised too well. I think my mom and my dad, like they raised me to be too kind because I literally was giving him advice on how to deal with his casual like situationship thing. And then I don't even know how we got into this, but he was talking so much about how his ex-fiance, like the thing he really liked about her was how beautiful she was and how his family liked her. He could not say one specific thing about why he actually loved her. It was her appearance and that the family approved. I mean, that's another massive red flag. And then he talked about how like this casual girl was really hot. And I was just sitting there like, why? Like, what is the point of this guy telling me about all these other people, all these other women that he thinks are really hot? So I was just like, okay. So I was, why did we get into this? I mean, this is where like the self-flagellation really comes in, because this is where like the self-flagellation. So this is when you punish yourself.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I took out the big stick and I started to beat myself with it because I was like, okay, so you don't think I'm attractive. And his literal reaction, like the actual thing he did was, I don't know what to say. That was his response. And I mean, the silence, the stunned face, y'all should see Levy's face right now. And then I was also like, the girl was too sensitive to speak. And he did not say anything else. And obviously, like, everybody here is like screaming, oh my God, please tell me you left. No, I did not leave. I stayed for another 30 minutes.
Oh, Jesus
so the next thing that
Christ.
happened is that he went to smoke a cigarette. I phoned a friend and started to cry, telling her the story of this absolutely horrible, horrible date. And then when he came back up, I was like, well, you're paying for the drinks. I downed my second cocktail. He paid for the drinks. We left the place, went in opposite directions, and I saw then that he blocked me on WhatsApp after this date. And that is my worst date ever. So, yeah. You have to say something. Wow. Are there any comments?
I feel like
from the audience?
Yeah, I was laughing because I found it. Obviously, it's.
I mean, I've obviously like.
And also, I think the way you explain it you made it funnier than it actually was.
I mean, like if you can't laugh at tragedy like this, then it'll just drag you down.
Oh my God.
But I mean, be careful because that's what's out there. So
this is the thing where I'm like, I was always, because I had this period of my life, which is still going, that I'm like, am I being like the bad person? You know, because I always, for example, like I was even thinking about like the dating in general. You know, and I was like, when sometimes I'm like, oh, something like didn't go well, and I'm like, is it like, is it me or is it them? You know, and then I think like, am I being, weird in any way? I think I also, which is quite weird because in my perspective, I think because I grew up religious, I think when I was a kid, I always was like, oh, God's watching you, and I think I grew up with that fear of like someone constantly watching me. Yeah. So I think I'd like to think besides of double texting, or like really trying to like, oh, hi, like besides of this, I've never, and again, I've never done anything else, and that's why I always think even like about like bad dates. I feel like there were a few, but I had this problem as well where I was like, I don't want to leave, like I don't want to be weird, but I also, because I remember, for example, from some people that I used to know, so like, look, for example, when I told some of my acquaintances about like that day, the one that I told you about, or the one with the girl at like the Caribbean festival, it was the same thing at Caribbean. We went drinking, and we went drinking to another place, and then she was like, oh, like let's go to mine. And
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, no, it's okay, I'm going home. And basically, she got like she was actually she outdrank me.
Yeah.
You know, and then I was at the point I was like, okay, I need to stop like drinking. So I started having soft drinks. And then by the time like the night ended, and again I'm talking about like 6 hours. Right?
Wow,
'Cause
it's a long date.
Yeah, and then she was like, oh, come to mine. I was like, no, get a taxi, go home. And then she gets a taxi, and she tries to like pull me in the taxi. I was like, no.
Really?
I was like, no, you go. So I kind of and basically I think I had to be like, okay, let my arm go. You stay in the taxi. I'm coming on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she let go, I just like closed the door, and I was like, okay, off you go. And I just kind of
Okay.
I think it's not run, but I like brisk walked away from the taxi.
Yeah.
Just to like let and I was like, what the fuck's happened? And
But I mean, I will say like there's a difference. I mean, there are grades in terms of like gradients in terms of how you turn someone down. And there are also gradients in terms of how you speak to someone and how you present things. And, you know, like rejection is hard, right? But does that mean it has to be brutal and just like an open flesh wound and like somebody is just like, you know, chipping away at you with like a hacksaw? You know, I don't think so. Like, obviously, I've also said no to people. Like, it happens. But this was just like, this is so brutal. I was like, I was on the floor. I was like having a hard time peeling myself off after.
That sounds, it sounds so. Oh God! And I'm trying to think about times where I think that's to me that's what I know. Like it's kind of like going nowhere where people start talking about their exes, but like a lot.
Yeah.
Because I think it was after the Ukraine-Russia like
invasion?
full scale, like invasion and like full scale war started, and I went out with this girl on a date, and basically she said that, I think in the bigger picture, I think she said that she supports Russia because her ex was Ukrainian, and she was like, I hate Ukraine. I was like, I don't think.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I was like, well, I'm glad you're not in charge of like international affairs. But anyway, he was just.
I mean, I get the desire for revenge at times, to wanting to like, you know, to be a little bit like that would be fair, you know, if they got some payback. I mean, I will say, you know, I think he was having like an honest to God truth. Like, yeah, I was on a bad date, but he was having a bad life. Like to be honest with it all, like, you know, to have had this relationship and to have completely single-handedly demolished it to an extent where then even your family isn't talking to you anymore. Like, part of me also felt kind of bad for him, and I think that's part of why I stayed as long as I did. Obviously, in hindsight, it's like the second he started talking about this stuff, I should have just been like, you know what? I don't think this is going to be it. Yeah. But yeah, it's easy to be clever about it after the fact.
Because I think at the time you're kind of you're there, you know.
It's like you're in a trance almost. You're like deer in headlights of like, wait, what is happening right now? What are they talking about? Are we really still talking about this? Oh my God, it's been over an hour. Are you still talking about this? So yeah,
that's how sometimes I'd be like, oh God, what's happening? And then like an hour later, I'm like, oh, it's still happening. We're still here, you know. And
we haven't moved on.
Sometimes I'd be like, oh please, like I was like, please, mom, dad, call me, someone, something, please, like, you know, make an emergency situation,
create an emergency.
Yeah. But I'd be like, oh, I got work tomorrow at like 4 p.m. I mean,
as I say, like this is the thing. Like finding a way to extricate yourself in a polite manner that isn't the harshest thing ever, but also that you have at the ready when you need to. And I think this is where like upbringing and culture plays such a big part in it as well. Like what is deemed to be acceptable where you're from. So I've like struggled with this throughout the whole dating period, and I it's really hard, but this is why some people are like, oh, only schedule like a cocktail and then say like you have something after. And on the date, if it's going well, then you can say like, oh, I rescheduled the thing after, so that it's there as a like you've already pre-planned your exit.
Yeah.
And it's already in place. You've already told them.
Yeah.
And then if, on the other hand, the date is going well, you can be like, oh, I moved that. It's like we have more time.
What's your thought on? Because I feel like there is a lot of pressure on when you go on a date, for example. Because to me, it's like, I've never met you before.
Yeah.
So in my head, I'm like, let's just see if we can, be in the same room first. Let's just see if we can have like a conversation, first. Because I feel like sometimes you walk into something and you're like, oh, I wasn't ready for this. Like I wasn't expecting this.
Okay.
I'm sure, like to you in your situation, I don't think we expected a first date where it's a conversation, or not even a conversation, just a monologue about like, oh, I've ruined my life.
Yeah. I'm actually deeply depressed. Can't you tell? Yeah.
While I feel like, to me, it's still to me, a wonderful date is when especially when you meet someone online, or especially when you meet someone that you haven't spent time with before. Just be a bit more like, kind of like, when you make friends, for example, when you go on the first day at work, you start from like, hi, how's it going? Or what are you into? What do you like?
Yeah.
While I feel online, or to me, dating is like, oh, you're here because you want to be with someone. I want to be with someone as well. That's it. We got to lock in ours,
Okay. I mean, I think this is quite a tough one, because people will obviously always bring their own expectations and their own predetermined conditions to things. I personally always tried to look at it more as like, is there anything here with this person that intrigues me to the point where I'm curious about them, so I want a second date? That's the threshold for me for a first date. But I also understand that there are some people out there where like the threshold is, are you the love of my life? And then there are other people who, it's just like, do you have a pulse? So there
I didn't understand what you meant. And I was like, oh.
So I think it's really hard to say. And I will also say, there's no linear path to love.
Yeah.
There's not just one right way. Not every story is the same. Platitude. So it's quite tough to give like a blanket answer for what's the way to handle it. But I will say that with dating on the apps, because the threshold is so low for joining them, I think it has opened the door for a lot of people to be on the apps who aren't actually that interested in anything, even to the point where they're not even interested in actually meeting someone. There's a statistic that only 50% of the people on dating apps have actually met anyone in person.
Well.
Yeah.
I remember when I was, which maybe, in one way maybe is my fault. Because I was in Romania, and basically when my mom fell ill, and I had to fly to Romania.
Yeah,
and I started chatting with someone like 2 days before I flew to Romania.
Here in London?
No, I was in Manchester at the time.
Oh, okay.
And then I flew home.
Yeah.
And while I was in Romania, and I think was like my mom was still in a coma. My mom wasn't like, like dead yet. But this girl, she just like out of nowhere. I think one day I messaged her going like, "Oh, hi, good morning. How you're right?" And she's like, "Oh, look, I'm not looking for like a pen pal."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Lady, I'm in. I flew the country."
Had you explained the situation to her?
Beforehand, because I was like, basically we started chatting.
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Oh, I got like a family emergency," and I think I probably said something like, "Oh, my mom's in hospital, and I'm going to Romania now."
Yeah.
And we still talked, you know, and then like, I think, as I remember, my mom was in a coma for like, I think 15 days.
Okay.
So within those 15 days,
Within the 2 weeks.
yeah,
Yeah.
within those 2 weeks, out of nowhere, I just got this message going like,
I'm not looking for a pen pal.
I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not me neither. But also, I'm not gonna fly back to Manchester
Yeah.
while my mom's in hospital. So I was like, oh God. And I think that's what it reminded me of. But I see what you're saying. Yeah, sometimes, and I feel like it's a lot of. I don't know what it was like for you, but I think this like online thing of like, oh yeah, just follow me here, and then that's it, you know. Like the amount of times I'd get, like, oh, just let's chat on Instagram or whatever, and then I'd be like, no.
Oh yeah, the people looking for like to
followers,
boost their follower numbers. Oh my God, yeah. And then I mean, I that only happened to me once before I like clocked the tactic. And fully realized it, but it was this guy where we'd matched and then we chatted. He seemed really nice and interesting. He always wanted to send voice notes. Fine.
Wait, you send him or
no?
him sending
He was
you?
sending voice notes. So fine. And then he was like, "Oh, how about moving this to Instagram?" And then we did, and he replied to one message, I think, and then he went ghost.
Oh.
And then like his Instagram stories were just like, nobody's really out there trying to properly look for love. Nobody's really giving it a chance anymore. Like his whole Instagram was just like a rant on it's so hard to be single and nobody's being authentic. And I was like, dude, look in the mirror. Like you didn't even like we were having a nice conversation. Yeah. It was a really good back and forth. Like we were getting to the stage of like, hey, when and where should we meet? And then you ghost, and then at the same time, you're like complaining that nobody's willing to do anything anymore.
He's probably been ghosted, I think, because it's like one of those. I don't know if it's, but it used to happen a lot in high school where he was like, "Oh, if you have like a fight with your girlfriend, post a song where you like, post an Eminem, like the Eminem song where he disses Mariah Carey, because that's like you dissing your, ex." And I feel like the amount of times when, at least for me, like growing up, it was a lot of, you have someone to say to someone, instead of telling them directly, post a story, or just do like a Facebook status. That was it.
But
it was a
I mean,
Facebook
this
status.
as well as like, I mean, expecting a little bit too much, I think, of other people to, from that, glean what you're thinking and where you're emotionally at. Just like these little hints, like. I don't think, whatever happened to clarity? I think clarity would be really welcome in those situations.
I think it was horrible, because I was thinking about like, even I think I was like that as well. Where I was like, oh, I really want someone to like message me, or like I want someone to give me attention, so I'll just post something, but I would only because I'm expecting for one person to get it. And then everything else was just like collateral,
Collateral
like,
damage. Yeah.
So that's why in my head, I can see like the guy being ghosted or something, and he's like, oh, nobody's, and then I was like, now you're taking one person and you're making it a whole thing.
And also you're part of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it's part of this whole thing as well, that because it's so readily available, because there's so many people on there, because it is just virtual, you don't really know these people, you've never met them, potentially you haven't had any real conversations with them other than some chats of like the typical topics. It is very easy to just dismiss them and to just kind of eliminate them. And there's also a thing of, but there's so many people out there, I have to find a way to whittle it down. I can't, because like when you're swiping, it's like, oh my God, it's hundreds of people.
Yeah.
You have to have something to create a funnel. And sad to say, but it's the most shallow, stupid things that end up becoming your funnel, because none of the deeper information is there anyway. The only thing that's out there is like, oh my God, this guy has 2 shirtless selfies. Yep, bye. So, like you got to find a way to create your funnel, but your funnel becomes so shallow, and that also feeds into then how you view these people, because you start gamifying it. It's really quite sad. I think ultimately it's quite sad.
It's so, I think it's so strange.
Yeah.
I think and it's very tiring, you know, especially because like you said,
It is exhausting.
yeah, it goes to the point where it's just like
Yeah.
on repeat, and
And it's a full-time job because there's so many people out there, and you have to, like, you know, for quite a while I was talking about like my rotation and how, you know, in order to have a good list of people that you were kind of like either seeing already or on the way to seeing,
yeah,
you had to be chatting to like 20, 30 people, which
Yeah.
means you got to have like 100 matches, which means you have to have swiped on I don't know how many thousand people.
well, that's what I was thinking about. Where it's like, I remember I used to I would take time of the day
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
like go on like on Hinge or like Tinder or like Bumble or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just and then you're like, okay, right now I'm just waiting for a notification.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's
Because when I first started out, I was like, oh, I refuse to have this be a game. So I was like at maximum chatting to like 3 people at the same time on the apps. And then once I had gone on one date, if I wanted to see that person again, then like everybody else I was dismissing. But that also became then too pressurized. And also because everybody else is not doing it that way, you were kind of the dumb one who's trying to do it this other way. Yeah. And who's like reducing your options and possibilities. So then I went the other way, but then that made me so exhausted and so tired and just like cynical about it as well, that then it removed the joy of it. Because at the end of the day, like, dating is supposed to be fun. You're supposed to be doing fun things. It's supposed to be interesting. You're supposed to meet somebody who, like, you know, has a new perspective. And like we were told in therapy, if you really are paying attention to something, like, there's a lot of interesting stuff out there. You can have really interesting conversations, and instead it becomes this tick box exercise.
Yeah.
And this like checklist of like, oh, but he doesn't match on this thing, so no, I don't know. And then you're not even really with it anymore. The kind of fun of it leaves you, and you just end up going, no, on to the next one.
This is, oh God, it's so it's really, I don't know. It's interesting because I do feel like, I think when I was on like dating apps, for example, I used to be like that. I used to like just be like, oh my God, I'm really, I like this person the most out of these people.
Yeah.
So I think it was a similar sort of journey. And then I went, I think close to the end, I was kind of like, I'm just going to see whatever things go with, like, you know, like, I'm not going to stop anything until like something happened. No, I don't know. Yeah, I think I went from like, oh, I'm just going to like, I would basically like message multiple people.
Yeah.
But then I was like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
You know, because you'd be like, and then it was just exhausting. And then, God, yeah. But
well, I mean, like, slight spoiler alert here, but basically what happened for me is that in December, my therapist dared me to delete the dating apps, and right around Christmas I did. And so I haven't been on the dating app since, and just trying to find back to myself in a way, allow for some space. And honestly, like, it was so much of this full-time job thing that honestly, now that I'm working a little bit again,
yeah,
I don't even know that I have the time to date the way that I was dating. And it's also quite interesting just in terms of having that space to see what that brings up in you, and giving you a little bit of distance to how you were dating before and what that app culture was doing to me as well, and how I was viewing myself. And honestly, I think also undervaluing myself, because it becomes so much of a thing of, oh, but you know, oh my God, like, are my match numbers going down? Like, does this mean I've become ugly? Like, I mean, it's horrible. And actually, just yesterday, one of my friends, she works, she knows someone who works at Tinder, and they were talking about the algorithm. And hot off the presses and confirmed, the algorithm will not show you your best matches because they want you to stay on the app. And if they show you the person or the 3 people that, you know, you would really hit it off with and who are, you know, your type of cute, you would leave the app immediately, and it would defeat the purpose. And they want you to be on the app. They want you to be part of the network effect of everybody's on our app. And they want you to feel kind of defeated and desperate to the point where you also pay for a subscription. So they're never going to show you the person you're looking for. And I think people have been mumbling about this for a while. And I think we're kind of at the cusp of people shifting back and realizing that, you know what, like this was a scam. If we were on the apps in the early days, back when things first started, you might have had a better shot because not absolutely, you know, everybody and, you know, everybody's mom wasn't on the apps back then. Which, I mean, literally, like, I know like some people in like my mom's generation who are on the apps, which, I mean, obviously, of course, do what, you know, gives you joy.
Yeah.
But that also means that, for instance, people who are avoidant attachment style are overrepresented on there, and you will meet a lot of those people. And there's, you know, such a confluence of what are you actually really looking for? Like some people who are looking for marriage, and then other people who are looking for just sex, or someone who's looking for a third for their throuple. I mean, you know, you run the gambit, and it's really, really hard. So I think we're actually at the starting point of the apps going under.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
That's interesting.
There might be kind of an evolution of the apps turning into very specific products for very specific needs. But I think this kind of general thing of like everybody's on the apps and that's the only way you date, I think that's dying.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I see. Because I was going to say, I feel like it's such a... yeah, I think it, but also I think we are in this, you know, generational group where the apps became a thing, and we are adjusting as a world, as a society, you know, to using it. I think it's like same as social media, you know, where like everyone is on social media. Like you gotta, you know, oh, you're on holiday, you gotta show people that you're on holiday. You're doing this, you gotta tell people that you're doing this. So I feel like that's just
but
a
don't
period.
you think it's a similar kind of, because I mean, that's what I would say is like the similar migration of what we've had with Facebook, for instance.
Yeah.
That like, oh, but then my mom was on Facebook, so now I'm no longer on Facebook. So it's become now the place for people who are, I would say, like 55 plus or 60 plus. And that you have kind of a similar evolution in that, you know, it's almost like the dating apps have become too big. So now they're so big that they're no longer catering or fulfilling the promise that they once held. And so as people are realizing that more and more, and as pieces of information like this trickle out of like, oh, it's never going to show you your ideal person anyway, so what are you doing on here? It is becoming this thing of like, okay, so I might still use the apps as like a time waste, or like, you know, when I'm traveling and I'd like a local guide, way to make another person feel used, by the way. Because I have also had that happen to me.
Shut up. Oh my God.
If you're not looking for someone for those specific purposes, then I think you're going to try to find someone through other avenues. And whether those avenues are like, I mean, I would love it if we would just go back to, hey, I have this friend who I think would be really good for you.
Yeah.
I would love that. Like, let's bring that back. Because honestly, that has a high success rate. Because friends of friends, they're going to have common interests. They're going to have something to talk about. And also,
do you think?
Yeah, and also, y'all know each other and you know the friend, so you won't treat each other like shit, and you won't just discard the other person because you know you will be held accountable.
Yeah.
So I think
That's a good way to think about it.
I think it would be really nice to bring some of that back.
I think no, actually, it's never. No, actually, well, the thing is, the one at the Caribbean Festival,
Yeah.
he was a friend of a friend.
Was it?
Yeah, and I remember a friend. Now we're not friends anymore. But at the time we were
This was
friends.
the end of our friendship.
No, at the time I was just like, this is. I think I was just like scammed by everyone involved. And
oh man.
yeah, and I don't know if it's happened to, but I think it happened to because I'm derailing with this, but basically because I was always like, I had to be like self-sufficient. I had to look out for myself since I was like 17, you know, like I live like financial
Yeah.
independence and everything, and I remember like even
I mean, we're getting back to attachment styles because I mean, it does sound to me a little bit like you have some of those avoidant attachment style tendencies. I can't lie.
and I remember kind of like going to like it would be like, oh, it's my round, for example, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, for fuck's sake, another like 15 or like another 15 pounds or whatever. I was like, what for? You know, I just go.
I don't
want
to spend more.
Yeah, I want to spend more. You know, like
Yeah.
I all this money. You know, and I remember once I had this, which was actually a very nice date. But I took the train to Liverpool and from Manchester, but not from London. Yeah, I took the train to Liverpool and we had like dinner and again, it was nice. I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
But all I could think on the way home was like, that's £90 I spent today.
90 pounds?
Yeah, and I was
for
like,
you for just you or for both?
for just for me, because we split
Where
everything.
did you?
Because we
where
went
did
for
you
dinner
eat?
and then we went to God, I can't remember. I think it was I can't remember the restaurant. It was a nice restaurant anyway. But like we went to the restaurant and then we went and played like mini golf, I think. But anyway, so like a wrap without the ticket to Liverpool.
Yeah.
It was like I think we spent like 90 and I was just
It's
like
expensive. It's
and
expensive.
well, all I could think of was like, this is
It's a lot
taking
of money.
me out of business, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't want to. I found really funny what you said about the. What? Wait, say that again.
What?
The bit about like, oh, I look like I have.
I'm sorry. What?
You know, because you said, oh, it sounds like you have. What was the
Oh, it sounds like you have avoidant attachment style.
avoidant attachment? I don't know what that is, but maybe.
Okay. I mean, I feel like attachment styles are all the rage. So basically, there are 3 main types of attachment style, and there's also a composite attachment style. So you have avoidant attachment style, anxious attachment style, secure attachment style, and then there's avoidant anxious or anxious avoidant, or also complex attachment style. And the secure is the most common. That's about 60% of people, or so they say. And then anxious and avoidance are like 10 to 15% or something like that each, or maybe it's 20. And then there's like less than 5% are the composite.
Yeah.
And really it's just a useful way of trying to think of how you're meeting people and what maybe your internal dialogue is when things happen and what triggers you if you're not a secure. And actually there's a book called Attached, which I was recommended by one of our therapists, and so I read it, and that's how I like now I'm a lot more versed in the attachment styles. And yeah, it's just kind of useful as a way to see, so that like if you're on a date with someone and it's starting to feel for you like, oh, this might be an avoidant attachment style, it could be a good time to exit, because it's not, like if you are anxious, then it's going to be hell for you. It's going to trigger you all the time. You're going to end up on a roller coaster. And if you're secure, you're going to have to do a lot of work to get that person to open up emotionally and to have like a full relationship. Now, not that anxious people aren't work as well, but anxious people are more prone to already being emotionally open and kind of wanting and cherishing vulnerability, whereas avoidants dislike vulnerability, generally have this thing of like, I needed to always take care of myself, so I don't think you're going to be able to provide what I need. It's better that I just do my own thing. They do, however, have this concept in their head of the ideal partner that they think is out there. But then everyone they meet, they will kind of, I mean, not absolutely everyone, because eventually some avoidants do end up in long-term relationships. But they will oftentimes, when they are on dates or when they're meeting people, just make a list in their head of why they're wrong. Like from the get-go, already be like, already be dismissing them, already be like, yeah, you're not going to do it for me. Like, this is just bad, rather than giving them a chance. Whereas an anxious is more prone to think there's nobody out there for them. So whoever you are, whether you're right or wrong, I'm going to try to make you stay.
Right.
Yeah. this is just a very high level rundown of
Okay,
it, but
cool.
I would say, like, I recommend the book. It's very interesting. It even has like a quiz so that you can figure out which attachment style you are, and then it has stories. It has a lot of basically little anecdotes from different
Right.
relationships, and you can kind of then recognize yourself in some of the patterns. Right, so then it's like, oh, it's an avoidant and an anxious together. Like, this is what's happening here. Like, Julie does this, Sam does this, and then you're like, oh my god, I'm Sam, I'm doing Sam things, and provides you insight into how maybe you've been dealing with some things. All of this to then try to actually work with on that. Don't just like quiz yourself, realize what you are, and then be like, okay, cool, now I know. I mean, do the work, but yeah.
Right. Well, avoidance.
I'm not saying it's this for sure, but just that there are some tendencies and some of the things you're saying right around how like you're self-reliant. Like it's very typical that avoidants have experienced that they've had to do things on their own, or that when they've felt in distress, or when difficult things have happened in previous relationships, that the other party wasn't there for them. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Well, we only covered, I think, one subject, but it was great.
I mean, we covered two, because we kind of went into some pop culture and some comedy.
Oh yeah, we did actually. Yeah,
We talked a little bit about some shows, and then went into the wonderful, glorious world of dating and attachment styles.
Well, let's leave it there for now. Just because, anyway, it was great. But then we'll have you back when, because I think this is going to be a couple of months. It's going to be like spring, end of spring, summer when it gets released. But then we'll have you back on, and then we'll chat about, I'm sure by the time we're going to have even more topics to talk about. But we can also see how the book is coming together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now, if anyone wants to, check out, I guess, either like your work, or even like just to check out, check out your, I don't know, where are you like active social media?
Oh my God, where
wise?
am I?
If you are, if not, don't worry.
Well, okay. So I do actually have an Instagram for my writing, for my poetry. It's Charlie Winter, is my writing alias, and oh my God, I forgot my handle. I think it's something about, it's like Poems of the Heart or something. This is terrible. See, I'm not very active on social media. But that's probably, without having actually told you where to find me, that's probably the best place to find me. So it's an Instagram account for, I call myself Charlie Winter, and it's so far it's only a couple poems that I've posted there. But maybe I should just start being a little bit more active, and actually also publishing my short stories somewhere on the internet. Although I am always scared of someone just nabbing them.
Well, I think as soon as I don't know. Well, this is a book from like Rick Rubin, which I really liked. It's all like being creative and stuff, and it's always about the fact that basically he had this thing which I use in comedy a lot.
Yeah,
and I think even on the podcast where he's like, we all think that our ideas are just like our own ideas, but basically the thing is, because people can have the same ideas almost. Because we are like so many people in the world.
It's like how like as Thomas Edison was working on his light bulb, this other guy was also working on light bulbs, and the like Nikola Tesla thing as well, and like the AC/DC, like the current wars. For sure.
So the idea is that, if you do have an idea, put it out there, just like
Right.
just allow yourself to like release it rather than hold it. So that's anyway, that's just a little plug about like my own YouTube and TikTok and everything, because I do like just release most of my jokes, even though I know like some comedians, they're like, oh, I don't want like my material to be spoiled. But then the thing is, there are so many people in the world that I want to reach as many as possible.
Yeah.
So it's my work. It's out there. That's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, please do it, and
Okay.
then we can have a follow up
Yeah,
of some
that'd be
sort and be
great.
like, okay, cool, let's see what you've been up to. But
Yeah.
this was incredible. I
Oh,
genuinely,
thanks.
again, I didn't. Yeah, it was just a good conversation, and I think there is so much more to add to it.
Mhm.
I wonder if anyone's gonna hate me for some of the things I said. I'm not as terrible of a person as I may sound sometimes.
Hey,
I think I
mean,
don't know. Maybe I am.
I mean,
Was-
people will always find something to complain about. I think, especially on the internet. So
I am one of the these people.
you are one of those people. complaining on
Sometimes,
the internet.
that's the thing. Yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah, I still I still can't let some things go. So you know what? It's fine. I guess this is the price we have to pay.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kristine, was great having you
Oh,
on.
thank you, Levy.
Thank you.
you so much.
All right, well, that was it. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was a good one for you. It was good for me. And it's been a following on even the previous episode, the one from Friday. This, yeah, this has been a busier week than usual, with more content. Um, and then look, just stay in touch, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your enemies, tell anyone about this. It's for everyone. And yeah, I'm looking forward to have you back next week. Oh yeah, check out Kristine's socials and mine's. They're in the bio of the episode. Now, next week I'll hopefully have some more updates on our baby. How the baby is doing, how's Pickle. But that's all for now. Stay skillful. See you next week. I mean, talk to you next week. Bye bye.